Hello and welcome to the Hub World podcast. Um, my name is Jules from the Hub World, and today I'm joined by.
Matteo from the Hub World.
Hey, it's Gino.
Riley from that same thing they were just talking about.
And I'm Yako Iaco. I stream on Twitch sometimes whenever I feel like it, and I will be referred to as Yako.
And Yako joins us for his first episode on the Hub World podcast.
Our dear friend Yako.
Yes, we consider Yako to be a core member of the Hub World, although he's making his debut today. So look forward to hearing all of his fantastic gaming and nerd opinions. So today on the block, we are continuing our little mini series of console essentials. You may have caught our last episode in which we talked about the essential games on the NES, but in case you didn't, just to give you an idea, this mini series is we are going to talk about a specific console. We're all going to bring up some games that we loved playing that we think are essential games on that console. And by the end, we are going to debate and give you a list of what we think are the 5 most essential games on that console. We won't rank them in terms of 1 to 5. We'll just give you a list of 5. That's the goal. But in coming to that conclusion, you'll hear a lot of different opinions. And so, just to give you an idea of what we are, our definition of essential is, we're looking for games that we can recommend you as players now. So games that would be something that have aged well, something that a player can go back now and play, and it would be able to be taken out of the context of its time and still be um, playable and like fun and engaging now for whatever reason, as well as it being generally accessible. We're not going to tell you to go play some game that was only released in Japan and that you can only get through special ROMs. Like we're going to give you a list of games that are accessible to a degree, as well as are influential and what we think would be great to go try now if you haven't already.
Yeah, none of that's the Teleview stuff.
Yeah. So I think we can already get started. So today, I can't remember if I said it, but today we're going to be focusing on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in Japan known as the Super Famicom, and we will talk about what we think are the essential games from the Super NES. So anybody has the floor to bring up a game that they would like to speak about, that they believe is to be an essential game from that console.
I think I'll start this one off just because I wanna just get the ball rolling with this one here. Yeah, Super Mario World. One of the ultimate platformers of that series, and like the Mario, like the 2D Mario genre. It is vast. It's grand. We have our first appearance of Yoshi in the game. Great power ups like the Super Cape, and obviously like Yoshi has his own power ups and everything in there as well. Just a tight platformer. Great. Just general fun. And even after all these years, it's still people go back to it and play it, whether they're doing like speed runs and other things like that. If you're playing on the newer version of it, Super Mario World, in Mario All Stars, there's like a unique sprite for Luigi and stuff in there that they added to the game afterwards, as well as all of the like the previous Mario games in the Super Mario World engine. Just good fun, good times, and like lots of nostalgia and some great co-op on the couch as well. Some great competitive moments. Matteo and I actually used to play this. We had a little TV, a little CRT TV in our kitchen when we were in elementary school, and if we got ready for school in time, our dad would let us play for a little bit until the TV fell on Matteo, at least.
Yep.
And then we stopped doing that on that TV in the morning.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Super Mario World is I think it's the best 2D Mario game to this day. Like it's between that or Mario 3, but like I'm more inclined to say Super Mario World just because I just think the visuals are better. Like platforming aside, I think they're pretty like platforming is pretty equal among those two Mario games, but just the visuals of Super Mario World put it over the top for me, and like the fact that Yoshi's in the game, like you said, Gino, like and like the level design too is like really on point, and
Oh, it was
like
solid.
yeah, like and like I love the Star Worlds at the end of the game as well, like hidden exits and levels, like the boo houses were really good. The like you had the Koopaling fights. I think the Koopalings were in Mario 3, but like I just think Mario World, it's aged a little bit better compared to Mario 3, and I just think it's probably the best pure 2D platformer on the Super Nintendo as well. And like and then like obviously the score, the Koji Kondo's soundtrack is unreal in that game. So like it's just there's so many like that game is firing on all cylinders, and it's
Well,
it's one of
it
the
is
most
definitely a
classic
masterpiece.
Nintendo games ever made. So
Yeah.
so
Could I follow this one?
Yeah, go for it.
yep.
So I think that while I agree Super Mario World is such a good game, and yeah, it absolutely introduces Yoshi. Um, what should be mentioned as well is not Super Mario World, but Super Mario World 2, more commonly known as Yoshi's Island. The
Oh,
game that begun the Yoshi series starred Yoshi as the main character, and still to this day, in my opinion, is the definitive Yoshi experience.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic game, completely different than something Mario had ever done because it basically created a whole new franchise. The level design was creative while staying within the universe of the Mario, within the Mario universe, also creating its own unique aesthetic, creating its own unique characters, kind of giving some backstory to the Mario series with Bowser and Mario and Luigi appearing as babies. Um, and just overall so fun, so much charm there. So I don't know, I I wanted to just mention that Super Mario World 2.
yeah. I believe
I
Super
actually
Mario
had
World
that
2
on
was
my list.
also one of the first like 3D kind of effects you would get in the game. In the actual title screen, you saw the island and it would like spin around from all different angles and stuff. Just they were able to use the Super Effects chip for
the most
in that regards, just to like get it to like spin around and like actually like give us kind of like a 3D moving image, like a 3D GIF almost. I just a little bit of a little bit of trivia there with that one there. I thought that was really really cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, another solid choice.
I think also with like I can't stress enough how like fantastic the art style is for Yoshi's Island. Just the like the hand drawn, like it's like a kid drew it kind of like the environments. It's just so cool, and like I like how like Yoshi games, yeah, like the Yoshi games that have come out since, like not all of them are that great, but at least like a lot of them still kind of like have like like create like the hand created type art style, whether it's arts and crafts or whether it's like also like with the hand drawn style. Like it's just I just think that's really cool that Nintendo keeps doing that with Yoshi's solo games or his spin-off games. And this the just the thing is that Miyamoto like made that, the rumor is there's something like Miyamoto made that game to compete with the Donkey Kong Country games, as like because the Donkey
Mm.
Kong Country games when they came out, those were like the graphics in that game were cutting edge, and Miyamoto didn't want to get like one upped, so he did Yoshi's Island in response to that. I'm not going to recommend Donkey Kong Country 1 because I don't think Donkey Kong Country 1 is the best Donkey Kong Country game on the system, but I'm going to recommend Donkey Kong Country 2. Diddy's Diddy Kong's Quest, or is it Diddy's Kong Quest?
Diddy's Kong
Diddy's
Quest.
Kong
Quest.
Quest, yeah.
Yeah,
Good segue,
So-
by the way.
yeah. Thank you, Yako. I just think that's probably Rare's best game they made on the Super Nintendo, in my opinion. And like, this was like early on in Rare's like basically domination. Like they aside from Nintendo, like Rare was on fire, and it started off during the Super Nintendo lifespan. And Donkey Kong Country 2 in particular, I think it built off of the foundation of Donkey Kong Country 1. Unfortunately, Donkey Kong's not playable in the game, which is weird, but this is Diddy Kong's game. And I'm very surprised Diddy Kong had his own game that early in the character's life. But like, it was Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, and just the music. Oh my God, Crocodile Cacophony, Gangplank Galleon, like David Wise's score in that game is it's just fantastic. And I think it like, once again, like the compositions on, particularly in the Super Nintendo, that's when I really got into like video game soundtracks. That system. But like, it's just more like, I feel like the 3 Donkey Kong Country games in terms of gameplay are all very similar, but the level design is what really differentiates them. And I think the level design, particularly in Donkey Kong Country 2, is the most solid, and I just like the whole pirate aesthetic the most. So
Yeah.
my recommendation is Donkey Kong Country 2. If anyone else wants to add on that.
No,
I don't
that's
know.
just another solid choice, and the more
Solid
people
choice.
talk, it's gonna be hard to pick because we already have 3 solid choices right now. Oh God.
Yeah.
I got
How
one.
about Riley or
Yeah.
Yako? You got one?
I
Yako?
got one, yeah.
Let's hear.
Now, this is a game that I used to play with my brother when we were in his room all the time. We would used to play a little ditty called Street Fighter 2 Champion
Oh
Edition.
gosh.
Solid.
Really, one of the best fighting games you can play. Now, sad thing is, never played the Super Nintendo version until a few months ago. We always used to play the Genesis version. On the Genesis version, it wasn't as good. Let me put it at that. You would always have to press start if you wanted to switch from punches to kicks. But the cool thing about the Super Nintendo controller is it's got all the 6 buttons you need. I'm talking about the buttons too much here, so let me get on to the game.
For those of you that don't know, Yako is a massive 2D fighting game fan. Like,
Just
he
a
plays
fighting game fan.
he plays
in general,
everything.
I'd say. I play everything I can get my hands on.
He's a fighting game connoisseur.
What else do you want from the World Warriors cast? You got Ryu, you got Ken, Guile, you got Chun-Li, you got Blanca, you got E Honda, Elsim. Those were the original cast of 2. But then in Champion Edition, you got Sagat, Balrog, or Boxer, Vega, or Claw, and M. Bison, the last boss, also known as Dictator. Know what the character is, because in Japan, the big fiasco, and they were worried about Balrog's original name, which was Mike Bison or M. Bison. So they didn't want to get in trouble. What was the heavyweight champion in boxing, Mike Tyson? So they changed M. Bison's name to Balrog.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yako, did you guys ever do like the E Honda spam with just the palms?
That was my character when I was that age.
Oh gosh, that was fun.
My
Just
brother
spamming
never
that
told
out.
me any other special move but that one. I taught
Yeah,
myself
that's
that.
solid.
Crouch and slap.
That's a solid choice because I think Street Fighter 2 is usually
So which
regarded
version
as
of Street Fighter
the
2?
definitive one. Street Fighter 2 Champions Edition, I think.
Champions
Yeah, I think
Edition or Hyper Fighting.
Yeah. So like, and Street Fighter 2, yeah, isn't that like considered like one of the most definitive Street Fighter games?
Yeah.
Well, good one. Riley, I don't know. Do you have something you want to mention?
Well, as I I kind of wanted to, for the most part, sit in silent
Bless me.
judgment of all your picks. I was kind of hoping that Yako would also mention a platformer because I have detected one glaring omission thus far, and that is Mega Man X.
I was gonna mention that one.
Okay,
Was-
well,
You go
Yeah.
though.
while on the topic of platformers, I just want to put as I don't know if Jules mentioned during the NES one. I asked him to kind of mention on my behalf a Mega Man game. I think he went with 3, but I'm a
Mhm.
pretty big Mega Man fan. You went with 3, right, Jules?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
3
did.
made it on the list. Like it
Yeah.
was one of our 5.
Fantastic.
Sure.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm a big Mega Man fan. I highly recommend X. It's specifically for the music, but also the game. I find it's a lot more accessible than the original games, but it also allows for a lot more tech if you want to get more involved. It's also, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat. It's a lot harder than the ones previously mentioned, but I mean, that's kind of par for the course for a Mega Man game, I reckon.
Yep.
Um,
That's the point.
that is part of the point. I like the sci-fi setting. I like the story. I like the wanton violence a lot more. I think it's a lot more. I don't want to say the word visceral, but you actually get to shoot things, which is a nice change of pace from those other ones, while it's still being somewhat kid friendly. So it's nice.
So I've never played like any Mega Man game, but just seeing like gameplay, is my assumption correct? Is like the X games are a lot more like combat focused than
Yeah.
the original series?
Um,
Like it's not like platforming isn't as like
There's still lots
like
of platforming, so
yeah, I know
lots
there's
of
a lot of
platforming.
platforming.
they added the wall jump too, which is a
yeah.
big help. With,
That does kind of make the
Mario.
platform easier. I admit platforming in the X series is a lot easier than it was in the original Mega Man stuff. There's not, at least I don't
Not much
remember
of a
in
focus.
X. There aren't those
Yeah.
annoying blocks that disappear constantly and reappear into
I
different spots.
wouldn't say that the platforming is
It's not the
less
main draw.
important. I would say that the combat is more important. So it's not like they dialed back the platforming. The platforming becomes easier as a result of some of the tools you have, but
Well, no, it's
more like
also
they
just easier by design. Again, they don't have some of the really cheap jumping puzzles they had in Mega Man
fair
1,
enough.
2.
But I don't think the platforming is less integral. I think it's just that they made the combat more integral. Like
Yeah, I think that's a fair
they
assessment.
redefined the combat system.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. Does anybody else have something to bring forward?
I
So-
got like 4 on the brain right
I
now.
got
Oh.
2, and I'm sure everyone else has these 2.
I
But
just
I'm
want to
gonna-
give an honorable mention to platformers, if you don't mind, before we move off from
Yep.
that subject. I know it's not gonna make the list, but another recommendation if you like hard games is Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Where the
And that one
platforming
just
is-
got the Ghouls and Ghosts games. Didn't they just get
New
One
release,
of them-
yeah.
I think it's a reimagining though. It's not a full one-to-one
Yeah.
remake. And I'm not sure if it's Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Goblins. I think it's Ghosts and Goblins.
It's Ghosts and Goblins
Yeah.
reincarnation, I think.
Yes.
So slightly different, but
Oh no, it's not Resurrection.
Okay. Well,
So-
go ahead, Matteo. You had one
Yeah.
to bring up.
So, this also happens to be one of my favorite games of all time. Like I probably in like my top 10 at least favorite games of all time. A genre-defining game, and arguably one of the greatest games on the Super Nintendo itself, Super Metroid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's also one of the greatest Metroid games ever made. Like that game is just as good now as it was probably when it came out. Like I first played it on the Wii U Virtual Console, but it was always one of those games that I really wanted to play. Like I had played before Super Metroid, I had played Zero Mission, I partially played Fusion, I played Metroid Prime, but like everyone was saying, like I remember reading online, like Super Metroid like is one of the greatest games not only on the SNES but like of all time, and like it's responsible for creating like the Metroidvania genre,
Mhm.
which is like
Yeah.
so many games have Metroidvania elements in them now,
Super
But-
Metroid is the foremost member of the Holy Trinity of Metroidvanias, the other two being Symphony of the Night and Hollow Knight.
Yeah, and like Super Metroid, I just loved like and like Metroid 1 did this beforehand, but like Metroid 1 just wasn't as good. Like it was the game
It
like
was
it
limited
didn't
by the
have
hardware.
Yeah, like Samus didn't have as many abilities in Metroid 1. Like the atmosphere, like the atmosphere was like they nailed the atmosphere in the first game. But Super Metroid, just because of how much more the hardware could do,
You'd
like
actually have
on this,
backgrounds.
like the moving backgrounds and just like the music, like this, it changed in every region you would go in, and like it would just you could the sense of like Samus being alone on this alien planet, like they nailed it, and like the progression system is fantastic in Super Metroid, like all the different abilities Samus could get, and just like wall jumping was there, and like you had all the different types of uh blast Samus could use, the different suits, like the bosses in that game are fantastic. Like everything about that game is so good, and like it's a shame that the Metroid series, like the Metroid series, could be so much bigger than it is now. That game is responsible for so much that people take for granted today, and like I cannot recommend that game enough, and it's available everywhere. So like, there's no reason to not have a way to play this game.
Like whether or not you missed it on the original Super Nintendo, you could get it again, like through how Matteo said it, on the Wii U of all places. But you can
Yeah,
also get it on
it's
the
on
SNES
every
Classic
virtual
if you have one of
console.
those. You can get it on the Switch with the Nintendo
Yeah,
online
it's on
subscription.
3DS.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Another classic that's I was hoping that someone else would bring up, but I guess I can say it here.
Well, does anyone else have anything to add about Super Metroid?
Oh yeah, I know Yako and Riley. These are like it's one of your guys' favorites also. I actually thought Yako was going to bring it up until he brought up Street Fighter.
I was gonna bring up that. Instead, I'm gonna bring up this game,
Okay.
which
Well,
is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Yes. Okay, that's what I was going to talk about, but you
Yeah.
go for it.
You
But what
can go
makes this
ahead,
one special?
Gino. Because you said you were just about to bring it up. You said because
I know,
right
but then I
now-
changed my mind, and now you brought it up. I want you to talk. Well, what do you think about this one? What makes this
Okay.
game so special?
Well, this game formulated just the way every Zelda game, in my opinion, should play out. You have your first quest, which is always get 3 items, unlock something else. This game, introduced the Master Sword. Second most important item in the Zelda universe now.
One thing that I find that A Link to the Past did really, really well that the original, like the first two Zelda games really couldn't do was, well, obviously you had more of a sense of direction in A Link to the Past, where like, okay, you had you had your overworld map that actually like blinked where the pendants were, so you kind of knew what direction to go in, but it still let you decide which of the 3 dungeons you could do first, really. And then once you get to the Dark World, and you basically have this like another,
Mhm.
basically like all of Hyrule is transformed but twisted and different, and you have to get like these the 8 crystals, and it still shows you where they are. And I think the crystals in the Game Boy Advance version of the game were numbered. Were the original ones numbered? Do you know?
I think they were.
Yeah, so
They absolutely were.
it kind of gave you like, okay, this is where you go here next. But each one of those items in the game, like A Link to the Past, really set up a lot of the staples for Zelda games going forward.
Yeah.
And albeit we haven't gotten that with with Breath of the Wild recently, but you have your staple items, as Yako said before. You have your Master Sword. You have the introduction of the Triforce, like with all 3 pieces, not just.
Also the introduction of the hook shot as well.
Yeah, the hook shot was a big one. It became a series staple. You have your bombs. You have, you had your massive you had the hammer. You had the bug net that somehow you can, like the joke, defeat the boss mechanic. Like you can spin with the bug net to reflect back Agnaheim's attacks and stuff. Just like how you can use the bottle in Ocarina of Time, like the joke mechanic. Oh, just.
But the thing is
Lots
with
of-
Link to the Past, and like what I alluded to, like the
it's a
2 big
long
games.
game. It's a long
Super
game.
Metroid
too.
was Super Metroid was the one game, and Link to the Past was the other like monumental game that like is on Super Nintendo. Like the amount of like I was very harsh on Zelda 1 in our NES podcast.
It
And the
was just
reason
so
why
difficult, right?
I was so harsh on it is just because like look at what followed after Zelda. Like Zelda 2 came out, it is what it is. But Zelda A Link to the Past is the true successor to the original Legend of Zelda, in my opinion. Like that
Mhm.
game, I was the full realization of what that game could be. And
It
like,
took
2D
the
animation style.
yeah,
cranked it up to 11.
yeah, like,
Oh yeah.
and think about like the once again, I'm gonna bring it to music. A lot of series staples were introduced in that game, like Zelda's Lullaby,
Zelda's
Kakariko
Lullaby,
Village,
Kakariko Village,
um,
Death Mountain.
yep, like
The Dark World theme is just
yeah,
so iconic
there's
now.
yeah, like, and then like Gino said with the items, like a lot of items from other Zelda games first debuted in Link to the Past. The dungeons, the level design is fantastic. Like that
Pacing is
game,
real good too.
yeah, like it's probably still to this day like the probably still the one of the best, if not the best 2D
Isometric
Zelda
type
game.
game, right?
I'd still put
Yeah,
I'd
Top
still put A
down.
Link to the Past in the top 3.
I'd put it personally in like top for sure top 5 Zelda games period. But
Yeah.
like it's probably still arguably the best 2D Zelda game.
Oh yeah, hands
And
down, no questions.
I just think like that game is so important. It was
It had a
like
lot of
it
hits.
didn't sell as well as the NES, but the way that Nintendo's approached their series on that system, like it solidified Zelda, it solidified Metroid, or I guess it didn't solidify Metroid, but like it solidified Mario, solidified Zelda, solidified Donkey Kong, and like
Set up
it,
the groundwork for a
yeah,
lot of
and
those
like
games.
and that's what I was gonna say it set up the groundwork for Metroid. And just going back to like Link to the Past, like I just think Link to the Past is just it's a masterpiece. It's another masterpiece on the Super Nintendo. Just
Yeah.
another like perfect game, in my opinion.
Okay. The next one that I kind of want to talk about for myself, and I kind of brought it up the last episode of this that we did also was the Kirby games. And on this one here for the Super Nintendo, you had Kirby Superstar Ultra, which was kind of like
It
a
was
compilation.
just Kirby
actually
Superstar.
Yeah, it was
Just
just
Superstar.
Yeah.
Oh, just Superstar?
Ultra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
DS
Ultra, yeah.
version is Ultra.
Ultra
Yeah,
is
the
the
3DS
remake,
one's
yeah.
that one. Yeah, Kirby Superstar. It had a lot of little mini Kirby games, kind of like put into one kind of combo pack for this one here, and you got so you have your classic Kirby gameplay, but you also have the Meta Knight game on here, which was really really cool too, because Meta Knight was established as a villain in Kirby's Adventure on the NES, and he was just this kind of like masked figure, and you got to play an entire game as him, just flying around using your sword and stuff. You had the Dynablade little saga and stuff in there as well, where Kirby has to help the Dynablade out, and it was just really well done. You got the 16-bit graphics, more colors, better music, and it was just really really cute. I thoroughly enjoyed Kirby, and
A good
again,
co-op
I
game as
believe
well.
that while Kirby started off on the Game Boy, the NES version of the game really solidified. Okay, like this is a character, this has some staying power, and then Kirby Superstar comes around, and Kirby truly became a superstar in this game here. They tightened up the gameplay even more, solidified what the Kirby gameplay would be focused on. Platforming, it's a little bit more cutesy and fun, but it can be very difficult and really story driven and character driven as well, where you have
Actually,
Gigi,
Kirby
you have-
Superstar isn't that story driven. It's actually a collection of smaller.
Small
But
but
games.
you have all these. Well, that's what I was trying to say. You have all these little mini stories. It's kind of like a compilation pack of like mini games, but you get multiple different stories, and you can kind of see like Kirby games don't need to have like the great or overarching adventure theme of Legend of Zelda or this super dark, gritty, lonely thing, just like Super Metroid. It was just the polar opposite, very akin to what Yoshi's Island had, where it was like kind of cutesy and everything, but I think it took it an extra step further in the cutesy direction, and I personally love like the classic Kirby art styles just because it is very cute and fun. but like they do have a lot of nuance and difficulty to them as well. If you go back and you play some of the other games and other difficulties, right? I don't know, just my 2 cents. I thought I'd mention Kirby Superstar.
It was
Yeah.
on my list, so I
Yeah.
think it's a good
Jules,
one.
I'm
to
surprised you
mention.
haven't said one of them yet. I've been kind of staying away from a certain RPG.
Oh yeah, no, I've been waiting.
Yeah.
I've been letting everybody talk, but I'll share. My Super Nintendo most essential game, and arguably one of my favorite games of all time, and still what I consider to be one of the greatest RPGs in general
Super Mario
of all the
RPG.
RPGs. I've played countless JRPGs. I consider myself to be primarily a JRPG player, but very few come close to the polish, um, to the charm, to the narrative, and like the world building, and like the I really like the what's the right word? I'm like almost like the narrative consistency of Chrono Trigger. Um, and I know this is a game that probably gets mentioned a lot as one of those really noteworthy games. The other thing I really like about it is that it kind of like ended, because it does feel like a gem of its time. And even going back now, like even if somebody were to ask me, like somebody who's playing JRPGs now, and they would ask me what's a JRPG you'd recommend, I would still recommend Chrono Trigger. Like it's so good. The nice thing about the SNES art style is that especially like some of the later games, um, it doesn't age. Like it's just an aesthetic. Like it's not ugly. It's just like a 16-bit aesthetic is. It was it 16 or 32?
There's
What
16.
16.
16? Yeah.
16.
16-bit like doesn't age poorly. Like it's just it still
Mhm.
looks good. And Chrono Trigger has gotten so many re-releases because of how great it was. Characters were designed by
Kira Toriyama.
Toriyama.
there you go. Thank you for filling in his name. Best known for some of his designs in
Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball and Dragon Quest. Um, he like it's just the game is so wonderful. Like the music is just phenomenal. The score is fantastic.
Story
It's
is
so
amazing.
character driven. And that's the thing is like the story itself isn't like the plot itself isn't anything incredible, but what's incredible about the plot is how well they do time travel. It's like Back to the Future, right? Like Back to the Future, the plot itself isn't brilliant, but what's brilliant about it is all those little things that just connect. Like as you're going through the story, like the way that they treat their time travel as like a function of that world, and you see how like seriously they take that consistency. Like that's what you see in Chrono Trigger, and that's why it's so well done, is that it's not necessarily that the plot has a lot of twists, but as you're jumping through different time periods and you're watching the events of that world play out and watching why certain things in the history of the world connect to certain things in its future, like, and seeing that narrative of like the whole world play out is so incredibly interesting and enticing. The characters are just so well done. Like they're so they're so round, and they go through these character arcs. Like there's not a bad character in that game, which I'm sure Riley would disagree with, but I don't think there is a bad character in that game. They all have their own unique arcs, and they all have something to add. Although yes, some are better than others. And
Yeah.
it's just I really appreciate that game. And another one to mention is Final Fantasy VI, which is still regarded as one of the best Final Fantasies of all time. But the only reason I've played all of Final Fantasy VI, and I really like it. I think it has a lot of the same notes that Chrono Trigger has. I personally believe Chrono Trigger is the better JRPG, and I know others would disagree with that, and that's okay. But that's also another one worth mentioning because it does hit a lot of those gameplay heights. It is also very character driven. In many ways, it's shocking for what it does with the story. Um, yeah, in general, it's just the Final Fantasy VI, for the same reason as Chrono Trigger, is just really well done. It's a very well put together game.
Not to mention the music's pretty good in that too.
And the
Yeah.
music is good, the characters are good, the villain is fantastic. Because the presence of a villain is something that Chrono Trigger actually lacks. To a degree.
Well, you kind of get that though with like you
To a
have
degree, that's what I'm
you have
saying.
the looming threat of Lavos.
But it's
But-
but I mean a villainous presence. Like there's a difference between a threat and a presence, right? Like
Yeah, I know, like
and-
Kefka's
and the-
always around.
yeah, whereas Chrono Trigger doesn't really have, like, it does kind of have a villainous presence, but it's not constantly there. And then of course there's a looming threat, but that plays into that story.
Yeah.
Whereas like with Final Fantasy VI, it's kind of the opposite, right? Like the villainous presence is actually what plays into that story being intriguing, because you as the player actually like know that Kefka is a villain and before the characters do, and you
Yeah.
get to watch those things play out.
Okay, so yeah, it's something to consider. So we got both of these great RPGs on there as well. You want to talk about Super Mario RPG? Yeah, no important characters or anything like that in that game. Actually, come to think of it,
Aside
not
from
very
Mario,
important.
Peach, and Bowser, no, I don't think
Yeah,
there is.
nothing of consequence or importance in that game. Okay, is that our list? Riley, do you want to add anything or?
Hmm. Wait, did anyone mention Earthbound? The obligatory Earthbound reference?
No.
No, we have
I
not.
was hoping somebody else would, so I wouldn't have to.
No, you're the big Earthbound the Mother fan. You go.
I guess so. I'm a big fan of Mother. Earthbound, great game. Really did another great job with RPGs. It had like a the health mechanic in this game actually was really interesting because it would always tick down. So like if you would take fatal damage, the health would slowly like tick down, so you had time to react before your HP hit 0 to heal yourself back up. So it was really interesting, and I played through the majority of Earthbound, not as
Other two.
yeah, I
Mother
didn't play
fan
Mother
you
2,
are.
I played Mother 3. So, and I played a fan translation on my hacked PSP because it was the only way I could play it in a handheld format. But I
Are you
thoroughly
admitting
enjoyed.
to illegal
the
activity?
genre.
Or at the
And I do.
time, Gino also is the only way to play it. Basically, period. Here.
Yeah. But
So-
that was for the Game Boy Advance. That wasn't Earthbound. It wasn't.
No, I know.
What?
I'm saying for Mother 3 also. Like,
Yeah.
couldn't play it
I didn't
any other way.
I didn't get a chance to play Earthbound farther than I think I got to like Tucson, and I got up to the point where like I played a good like the first half of the game. Well, actually no, Tucson isn't that too far into it, but like I played enough of it to understand the game mechanics, the characters, the spells. Adriano could talk to death about this game. He's the one who introduced me to the series, and he's like, "Oh, you got to play Earthbound. You got to do it." And he'd be able to speak to it a lot more than I am. But I love the world building. The humor in the game is great. The Mr. Saturns are amazing. You want slumber? Anyone else? Anyone else have anything to say about Earthbound, or because I'm happy.
I've never
now to
played
play
it,
Earthbound,
but it was one of those
just
games.
because-
It's like
yeah,
it's on the list. So
yeah.
Mostly, I think the best part about Earthbound is its sense of humor.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. Porky's dad just abusing the kids. Like
I don't know
you
if
can't
I
get
don't know
away
if child
with that
abuse is
anymore.
fun.
Just like
Sometimes.
just the amount of shit they got away with in that game was just hilarious. And it was just so like almost in your face enough to get canceled by, but like that game would definitely not get
Nowadays,
published.
yeah, you could get canceled.
Yeah,
for that.
it would get hella censored, and I understand why they don't want to do the translation for Mother 3 or make any future games in this series. It just pushes buttons just enough, but in today's world, it wouldn't fly. If you want an edgy RPG, play Earthbound.
I mean, it's also
It's
Japanese,
surprisingly
so I
childish
think
and very edgy.
you'd be surprised what flies in Japan. Like you should play games like Persona. Like trust me, I think it would fly today. It would be just fine.
Yeah.
so
Is that it for the discussions and whatever?
if that's the list for like nominated games, I just want to give a shout out to like any of the Disney platformers from the Super Nintendo. Just a very selfish thing there with like Aladdin, especially Aladdin.
Jungle Book, Lion King.
Yeah, Jungle Book. Lion King was hard, but I get there's easy ways to play those games now. Like you can play them on like the Aladdin Lion King combo pack, and then there was the other one I wanted to just quickly. SimCity was the other one. Gino and I put a
yeah,
lot of
SimCity.
hours into watching our dad play SimCity. It was a good time. I never
Yep.
personally played it, but like it's just
Dad was
really
obsessed
fun.
with putting trains
Whenever I
everywhere
think-
instead of cars because trains didn't pollute.
Yeah.
And then we
Whenever
would
I
just
think
summon
of-
in Bowser and destroy the city, and he'd be really upset. It was fun.
Well, okay, so final call. Anybody have any last ones to recommend before we move into the phase of trying to narrow down the 5 essentials?
Can I have an honorable mention? Because I know it's not going to make the list.
Yes.
Would also like
Shout
an
out to Mario
honorable
Kart.
mention.
Super
From
Mario
humble
Kart, I
beginnings,
agree.
every game after Super
I
Mario
would
Kart
like-
was better, except
Yep.
for one.
Except for one, Super Mario 64 or Super Mario
No,
Kart
no, no. We're
64.
talking about the Game
Super
Boy Advance
Circuit.
one. That was terrible.
I would also like to make 2
I
recommendations.
think 7 was worse because there was no I mean, I can't fault Super Mario Kart
I
for
mean,
not
Super
having
Mario
fun, 'cause
Kart and Mario
exactly.
64 don't.
We'll save the
But
N64
both those
bloodbath
were
for
out,
when the
but like they
bloodbath
came out
comes.
before Waluigi was a thing. To be fair,
Yeah.
That's no
I'd like-
excuse.
I'd like to make honorable mentions to Kirby's Dream Course, which was
Oh,
mini
God.
Yes, I love Kirby's Dream Course. It's
game
a
I
I
fantastic game.
destroyed
Goodness
Matteo at.
gracious
Yeah, I don't
Well,
like it because I'm bad at it.
Is that
'Cause
Kirby
it's just
Golf?
golf
yes, it's
Yeah.
golf.
Kirby Golf.
and
And what's the other one?
F-Zero. No one said F-Zero.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody said Star Fox, to be honest.
Well,
Star Fox does
so much better than original Star
yeah,
Fox.
the Star Fox and Star Fox 2 like don't play good, and like I wouldn't recommend that to anyone.
We'll get to it when we get to it with N64.
Yeah, in the next episode, we'll talk about future titles. Yeah, I think. Okay, so what's the list?
Okay, so we have 10 games, which is actually less than I had anticipated. But here is our list of games that we have to cut down to 5. So we have, if you want to write them down, you can. You don't have to. But we have Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest,
I got you.
Street Fighter 2, Champions Edition or whatever edition.
One of the 30.
One of the Mega Man X, Super Metroid, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Kirby Superstar, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound.
I thought you said Final Fantasy VI also.
I wasn't sure if we were putting that one on the list, to be honest.
Well,
I mentioned it, but
reference.
Yeah.
We'll put that honorable.
yeah, that could be honorable mentions. I know how much Riley enjoys
it's been
that game.
mentioned. It's something.
Yeah.
It's something to know. Riley, did you want us to put Final Fantasy VI on this list?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
You made a
Well-
convincing argument, Chrono.
Fair enough. Okay, so we have 10 games here to deliberate. I would just like to reiterate our rules for what an essential game is. So we're looking for something that you would feel that you could recommend to somebody now and they could go back and play and still enjoy. I would also like to remind everybody about something called list composition, which is essentially, let's not pick 5 platformers. Let's have a variety of things to recommend to people here. So let's keep that in mind. That doesn't mean we can't pick games that share similar genres
Yeah.
or styles or series, but it means to keep in mind that we also don't want to be recommending 5 Mario games instead of recommending 5 games that might have a variety.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ah, shoot, we forgot to mention Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mortal
well, that's
Kombat
okay.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yako's not a big Mortal Kombat fan.
Okay, so it doesn't matter then.
Yep.
The one fighting game I don't like, and I'm gonna get blamed for it in the comments.
Yeah, well,
Well,
Maybe that one guy will comment.
the so I think the easiest way to work here is just to to say what this game is a lock would be just like, well, which game do you think is not really
I think
like
there's one that we can automatically just knock off the list right now.
I think there's two we can knock off the list. But
Yeah, the
continue.
one that
Yeah.
I'm thinking of knocking off right now, as much as it is a meme to call me a fan of this series, Earthbound. There's Chrono Trigger's a better RPG. It's more readily available. Also, both games are
I
still
don't
like
think-
to find the.
I
to
don't
honestly,
find
think
the original.
honestly
I
Earthbound's
don't.
easier to play at this point, I think.
I don't think either.
No,
of
Chrono
it- I
Trigger's
don't think-
available on Android. You
if-
can just
if
get it
I'm
on your
being-
phone.
If I'm being honest with you, I don't think that we, for anything on this list, we have to consider accessibility to be a barrier.
Yeah.
None of them are inaccessible. They're all accessible.
Mhm.
I don't know. Just I've played Chrono Trigger right through to the end. I actually had to rage quit at the final boss. It was that difficult, but I didn't do enough like grinding and like preparation ahead of time for it. So that like failing that game was ultimately my fault. But I don't know. Just like I find the art style more appealing. I find the story more appealing. The characters more appealing, more relatable. I like the environments a lot better. I don't know, just like Earthbound, don't get me wrong, is a great RPG. I just think Chrono Trigger is better.
And that's fair.
And
But
that-
you know
and that's
what?
just-
I feel the
Ultimately, like,
exact same way, but for platformers, and I think Kirby Superstar is definitely the weakest out of all the platformers we have on
Well,
this list.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that too. See, so here's the thing with Earthbound is I don't think we should necessarily write off Earthbound for that reason yet, because we only have two JRPGs on the list. So I feel like it's possible we could recommend both if we really wanted to. So I think let's talk about it more. But for platformers, I think we have 5 on this
Yeah.
list, and I think it's very clear Kirby Superstar is the weaker one. As much as I love Kirby, I love
Yeah.
that game. I think it's the weakest one, and I think if we're gonna remove one of the platformers right off the bat, I think Kirby Superstar is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I would
Yako,
agree.
Riley, I don't know if you have anything to contribute.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, no, Kirby's good, but we have just so much more platformers on there that are better than
Okay.
it in lamest
Well-
terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
That's fair.
so that's gone. How about Earthbound? Does anybody agree with Gino's
Well,
proposal
I've
to
never-
just remove it right off the bat?
I've never played it, so like I don't really have a
Well, Riley and I have. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Riley, how would you feel about removing Earthbound?
Immediately, I don't know. I'd rather keep it for now.
Keep it for now. Discuss it in a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, fair. Let's just keep it for now. Let's discuss. Why don't we start thinking about the ones that we think are the essentials, like undeniably. So
Super
I'm
Metroid.
gonna go out on a limb and say all of us probably agree on Super Metroid.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, Super Metroid has to be there.
Now, that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more to fill 4 slots. Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest, Diddy's Kong Quest, Street Fighter 2, Champion Edition, Mega Man X, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound.
I'd say Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past has to be on there also, because it is the definitive like 2D Zelda game. It set up a lot of series tropes. A lot of the music comes out of this game. A lot of the relevant items, story beats. Like basically, A Link to the Past set built upon the foundation of the original game and built the whole house, right? Like it set the stage for what a Zelda game should be, and it wrote the formula for it. And I feel like if it's not a game, because I always recommend A Link to the Past, and I personally this is one of my top favorite Zelda games ever.
I think Link to the
So,
Past,
it's
I echo everything Gino's saying. But if we're not ready to pencil Link to the Past in yet, I want to also I think we should have another discussion about platformers.
yeah.
I think platformers.
Mar-
I think we need to shave down the platformers from 4 to 2 at the very least.
Yeah,
and then we can start talking about everything else.
Yeah.
I personally
It's
think
tough.
Mario World is better than Yoshi's Island.
Hmm.
I don't know how anyone else feels about that. I think
I
Mario
kind of
World,
echo that sentiment.
and so
I mean, I would agree, yes, and I would think Riley has strong opinions either way when it comes to Mario.
Not
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
honestly like
sure,
between like
we'll
Mario
shave
World
that.
and Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island kind of takes like because like is that the one where like Yoshi has some transformations and stuff in it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it kind of
like
like it fuses Kirby in with the Mario formula. That's the thing.
kind
Both
of,
are really
but
really
Well,
not
that's
good.
really.
okay. That's okay. I think it's pretty clear that all of us kind of agree on it, and I don't think we necessarily need to justify it.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
Mario is ultimately has always been the stronger platforming series, and Super
Yeah.
Mario World ultimately, like we said, is a contender for the best in that series. So even though Yoshi's Island is important because it was the first of its kind and still is probably the best Yoshi game, comparing what is likely the best Mario game it's very hard.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But now we got to shave it down even more. So we got Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country 2, and Mega Man X.
See, I would
Now
put Mega Man X more closely related to like Super Metroid, but Super Metroid's already a lock.
it's not. Trust me, it's not. It's
Oh, okay.
it is in terms of maybe like combat, like in terms of the way you, but in terms of
Combat and
structure, it's,
movement, yeah. Combat
yeah,
and
in structure,
movement
it's
is
more
very
like a
similar.
it's more like a platformer.
Yeah.
Now
I'll let you guys
I
talk
will
about
say
for Mega Man.
now this is my
Yeah.
my 2 cents on it. I like Mega Man X. I've played Mega Man X, and I do really enjoy Mega Man X. I do think it's a very strong contender here, and I definitely think it provides something different than what you would expect from something like Mario World or like Donkey Kong Country, which I would say share more of the similar like jumping on enemies kind of like idea, but at the same time, being a very big fan of the original Mega Man, I personally could not get into Mega Man X as much as like I don't hold Mega Man X as in as high regard as the original Mega Man series, which I know is not the case for a lot of Mega Man fans. So that's just my 2 cents. Is like I would be okay not saying it was one of the essentials, but I would also be comfortable saying it was one of the essentials. Like I like it and I can see why it's important, but also from my personal experience, I would much rather play one of the like older Mega Man games than play a Mega Man X game, personally.
Riley Yako,
I
what
mean,
say
I would
ye?
argue, but I'm super biased because I don't think Mario games are fun. So
But
I
yeah,
know
that's
Mario.
fair. Share your opinion.
If I were to pick from the three right now, it's a really tough pick too, because all three of those
I'm
games are so good.
I know. I mean, but I guess we could also consider what Gino said, and while Mega Man X is closer in structure to like a platformer, in terms of gameplay, it does have similarities with Super Metroid. So maybe we should consider the fact that we are already recommending like a shooter, quote unquote,
Yeah.
air quotes.
Yeah. And Metroid also has a lot of platforming elements and stuff in it as well. Because like you have your
Yeah.
ranged combat, you have your local there's no melee combat in
Traversing the map.
Super Metroid. You can't jump
Well,
on
a
enemies to defeat them,
Metroidvania
right?
ultimately a Metroidvania is kind of a platformer. It's just a platformer within a sandbox,
In a small
in
space.
a world. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
within like a connected
it's in a
world
shooter
map.
setting. Like again, like I personally wouldn't recommend Mega Man just because I haven't played any of them. And I know you
Yeah,
guys have, and I know
me
like the
too.
series is very, very special.
Well, why don't we do this? How about instead of cutting one out now, why don't we decide which platformer we're putting on the list?
I'd say Super
Okay,
Mario World.
I agree with
Honestly.
Super Mario World.
Yeah.
See, if I was gonna put one of these on, especially talking about the Super Nintendo, I would feel disgusting not saying Donkey Kong Country.
Really.
Because in my opinion,
Mhm.
like For sure. Super Mario World, like, you can argue Super Mario World's a better game than Donkey Kong Country 2, but where else can you get an experience like Donkey Kong Country other than on the Super Nintendo? So if I'm telling you to go play a Super Nintendo game, should I tell you to go play Mario, which you can play on NES, which you can play on DS, which you can play on Mario Maker? Like, the only place you're getting that experience for Donkey Kong Country, which is a stellar, fantastic series,
Yeah.
is the Super Nintendo.
Well, this is
And
the
I
thing,
guess like the
though.
later ones, but
This is the thing, though. I believe that all the 2D Mario games that came out after Mario World are not that great. Super Mario World is the peak of 2D Mario. Like that's the pinnacle of the series. It doesn't get any better than that. Whereas I think Donkey Kong Country, I think its best game is the most recent one.
ooh,
So
we're gonna fight on that. But
I think Tropical Freeze is the best Donkey Kong Country, but
It has new
Uh,
funky mode.
yes, it does.
True story.
And it's got Tropical
Nothing
Freeze
disputable.
has our favorite beloved Kong in it as well.
Yeah, Wood Kong.
So but like I just think Super Mario World is a classic. I just think it's a better entry point into 2D platformer games than Donkey Kong, any of the Donkey Kong Country games.
I do. I
Because
agree with you.
I think the Donkey Kong Country games, the difficulty is way higher. Like the precision needed and like I find also like the visuals of Donkey Kong Country kind of like you got to get used to them a little bit before you can like really
I
like
mean,
master those
I
games.
rage quit Donkey Kong multiple
That's
times,
fair.
and I
And, like,
appreciated the beauty of the game and the music
I'm
and
not even
everything. It's
saying
just-
I'm not even saying Donkey Kong Country 2 is better than Super Mario World. All I'm saying is like I think it would be a shame to tell somebody to go play games on the Super Nintendo and not get them to play a Donkey Kong Country game because
100%.
it's so like tied to the core of what Super Nintendo was, whereas I feel like Mario transcends Super Nintendo, right? Like you can get a
Like
Mario experience outside of Super Nintendo. Whereas
unfortunately
Donkey Kong
though,
Country, where can you get that experience? Super Nintendo.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I can see that, but I don't know. Like, if we were to like, if we were like, for instance, we're only like, why can't we just have both Mario World and Donkey Kong on there? Is that will that make the other decision too
We
difficult?
can, but we also have so many other games to consider that
mhm.
that I think we just need to decide now which platformers we're not putting on.
I think it is between Donkey Kong Country 2 and Mario World, personally. Like
Yeah.
I can only say that because I've never played Mega Man X. So
I'm the same way, and of the two between Mario and Donkey Kong, I've rage quit at Donkey Kong more than I've ever rage quit at a Mario game. I find that like if I was recommending what 5 games you are to play to like a noob,
Start out with.
like someone who's like first time video game playing that kind of stuff, Mario over Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong will make you rage quit if you're not experienced enough. I would
Well, why
recommend
don't we do
Donkey
this?
Kong over Mario in the situation where like, hey, just say if you guys had never played anything before and you guys are experienced gamers, I would probably recommend like the more nuanced, difficult game that also is very highly regarded, right? Like,
Okay, well,
it's
why
all
don't we do this then? Well, why don't we do this? Yako, have you played Donkey Kong Country before?
I have played it on the Game Boy version.
Okay,
Sadly.
fine, but
I
that
haven't
whatever.
I haven't started Diddy's Conquest yet on the Super Nintendo.
Okay, Riley, have you played Donkey Kong Country before?
I played the first one.
Okay, well, I think that's enough context. You've both somewhat played a Donkey Kong Country game. In your opinion, is Donkey Kong Country better or Mega Man X?
Okay, you shouldn't be asking me because I'm biased.
It's not biased. We all have our biases. What is your opinion?
I definitely think Mega Man is a better game than Donkey Kong Country.
Yako, what do you think?
I mean, I enjoyed
Hard to
playing.
say.
I enjoyed playing Mega Man X more than I enjoyed playing Donkey Kong Country for
Okay.
sure.
So then, what we have here is
Let me just say that. They're
I'm the
still
only
good
one.
games.
I've played all three. I personally would want to put Donkey Kong Country 2 the most on here, but Matteo and Gino think Super Mario World is the better game. Yako and Riley think Mega Man X is. So what makes the most sense is we're not putting anything on the essentials list yet, but we're removing Donkey Kong Country as a possibility.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Okay, so what does that
So
leave
now
us
what we're
with?
left with is we have 4 slots, and we have the games Earthbound, Chrono Trigger, Link to the Past, Mega Man X, Street Fighter Champions Edition, and Super Mario World. So 2 of these must go.
I actually what I
2 of
want to do
these
now.
must go.
I want to vote to push Link to the Past onto the list because I think 4 of 5 of us for sure would be willing to put Link to the Past on the list right now. Like I'm ready to do that.
I would say yes also.
See, I don't know about Yako and Riley, but I'm not comfortable putting Link to the Past on the list.
Really? The biggest Zelda fan's not willing to do that yet?
I'm not
I
a big
I know
fan
a Zelda
of,
fan who
but
would.
I'm not a big fan of A Link to the Past. I actually think A Link to the Past is incredibly overrated.
Me too.
That's why I
We'll
didn't
see
say a
about
word when you
that.
guys talked about A Link to the Past. And because
Uh-huh.
like ultimately this list is a culmination of all of our opinions, and if I'm going to be pushing one of my opinions through, I'm very much
Even if
behind
it's not 4 of 5 of us, 3 of the 5 of us, I don't think another game on this list will have 3 people that all
Maybe not.
agree on it, right?
Maybe not,
I
but
think Chrono might.
maybe instead of pushing things right now, maybe we should still look at eliminating things
Yeah.
rather than pushing things. I think that's
well, what about this? What about this? Why don't we all just say like, okay, what our 5 would be, and we can kind of just like get a feel of the room here.
but I don't think we need to do that.
I don't think we
we
need
should just
I don't think we need to do that yet either.
I
Yeah.
don't think it needs to go by vote. Okay, so I think we should return to Earthbound, personally.
Yeah.
So I think we should return to Earthbound because we have, again, Super Mario World, Street Fighter 2, Mega Man X, Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound. Okay, so
Yeah.
those are the 6. We need to remove 2. Now, the reason I'm proposing Earthbound is because, again, this idea of having multiple RPGs, of course, we can recommend 2 RPGs, but my question I'm posing to the group is, are both of these RPGs so good that it warrants us putting 2 RPGs over maybe recommending other games that are on this list?
I think for
I understand.
diversity, we should only pick one.
Okay.
I was going
Go
to
ahead.
say, not to knock the contribution of this, and I agree it's a fantastic game, but I was under the impression that if there was an arcade version of said game, that we wouldn't be using them.
Yes, that is very true. You are correct because we were talking about arcade games. Because we were going to have an arcade essentials later on.
And
yeah, and I think that's where
you understand
Street Fighter would come in.
where I'm going with this. You can infer.
Yeah.
I can infer.
Yes.
Again, not to knock the game itself, because I do agree it's a very essential, like it's essential the game
I
in
honestly
general.
thought that with Street Fighter on this list, it would make it all the way through personally.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I didn't think about that is because I think when we talked about arcade,
Look,
I think we were.
Let me say something really quick.
Well, let me
While
finish this.
Riley, you are right. There are better Street Fighter arcade games, though. You can go on the arcade list.
I think the other thing to consider is I think when we were talking arcade, so like arcade isn't something we brought up. Just to give context to those listening. When we were talking about the NES one previously, one of the rules we came up with internally was let's not do any arcade games because the NES had a ton of games that were actually arcade games that got ported into the NES, and so we're like, well, we'll do an arcade episode. So I think with SNES that line gets a little bit more blurred because these aren't really arcade games that were ported. These are more games that were developed for both simultaneously, and so that's where I agree with you on one hand. I'm like, that's something to consider for Street Fighter, but on the other hand, I'm like, but at the same time, is it is Street Fighter 2 an arcade game, or is it a game that was released on both console and arcade versus something
think
like, say, Galaga or Pac-Man, which were on NES but were clearly arcade games?
Well, I would say, I'd make the argument they're designed as arcade games first because they're meant to be played with the fight stick.
Played with fight sticks.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah, you're correct about that shit.
Well, that is something. Well, how do you? I think ultimately we have to ask, if we want to just take this further, we have to ask Yako. Yako, you're the one who has to speak to Street Fighter 2. How would you feel if we forego Street Fighter 2 because of its arcade status?
Again,
And
not to knock its
completely-
quality whatsoever.
And perhaps revisit it
Completely.
in a future Essentials about arcade games or arcade fighters.
We'll talk about the arcade centrals when we get to it, but I would be fine with taking it off the list. It completely slipped my mind.
Okay.
You can take it off the list. That's fine
So,
though.
okay.
It's a
We'll
good
remove
game
that
though.
one.
You should still play it.
Oh yeah.
I
So
agree with
then,
that.
so then, in which case we are left with Super Mario World, Mega Man X, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound, and one must go.
So all so I'm willing to, like, I think if I so it's basically we gotta say now which one do we not think is
in our 5 Essentials.
yeah. And for me personally, it would be Earthbound if I had to pick one, just because Earthbound I wouldn't say is a classic. I'd say it's a cult classic. I don't think it has that. It's not like it has to, like, it just doesn't have the same clout that any of the
Impressive.
other franchises have.
I would like
I
to
do think. Go ahead. Actually, go ahead. Ryan.
I'd like to say in defense of Earthbound, though, it is very, as Gino said, is sort of a like to detract from it, but I think it's actually a strength. It is very much a product of its time. It's kind of offers an
It's very
experience
bizarre.
and an ambience that's unique to the setting, like the time it came out.
But
It's
would you
very
pref-
hard to
and-
get
but-
an experience like that
But
elsewhere.
would you recommend a
Well, I-
RPG like Earthbound to someone who's never played any games on Super Nintendo, or would you recommend to them a classic JRPG, a traditional JRPG?
But I don't
well,
think
and
we're
Chrono
arguing.
Trigger.
personally, I'd say Earthbound because I'm not a fan of traditional RPGs.
But I also don't think we're necessarily arguing between Earthbound and Chrono Trigger right now. I think we're arguing Earthbound.
Yeah, because
just
I
as a
honestly, I
whole.
know it's very unlikely, but I think that as Jules put it when he was describing Donkey Kong, you could play Mario games and like on any other console. Like as great as Super Mario World is, I think having a Mario game on there just for the sake of having a Mario game is, I don't know. I think it's.
But it's
So-
not though. Like, it's Super
Well-
Mario World is I identify it as the 2D Mario game.
Well, before
right?
we move
When
on to
someone
this,
says a 2D
can I-
platforming Mario game, I think Super Mario World. I think of Super Mario World before the original.
See,
So
and
can
I'm-
can
I'm
I
the opposite.
interject? Can I interject
Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
start moving on to Super Mario World, because we're on the Earthbound train, and I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
contribute, and now we're starting to move into like, well,
Sorry.
Super Mario World. But and I am gonna pull the JRPG player kind of rank here.
Yeah.
I will say I'm glad you said what you said, Riley, because that's actually what I was gonna say too. Is like, on one hand, what you need to consider about Earthbound is this is a unique, bizarre experience. Like, you're not getting that experience anywhere else. On
Except
the other hand,
arguably Undertale, but
yeah, but I mean, like, even Undertale to an extent. But on the other hand, we do have to consider at the end of the day that these are games. And I, as a JRPG player, have always had a very difficult time engaging with JRPGs where you don't see the player character. Personally, and this is from a completely personal experience. Part of the reason I like Earthbound and I've played it, and I've never finished it, and part of the reason is because I always fall off because I find the gameplay in Earthbound to be significantly less engaging than something like Chrono Trigger or some other JRPGs. And so for me, coming from like a JRPG lens, I'm looking at it like, if I, having played countless JRPGs, I'm having a hard time going back and engaging with Earthbound, I don't know how much I would recommend somebody who is not a JRPG fan to go back and play Earthbound, despite the fact that it has relevance and it's bizarre and wacky and has charm. That's just my 2 cents on the
I'd
matter.
I'd like to give the I'm trying to I don't remember if it's the contra with Counterverse, but anyways, me being someone who does not like JRPGs, I actually enjoyed playing Earthbound's gameplay more so than a traditional one. So I don't know if that counts for anything, but maybe it's more accessible than a traditional JRPG.
Yeah, I can see the merit of that. It's a tough choice. It's like,
Oh, by the way, Jules, I'd just like to point out that I'm not trying to get rid of Chrono because I think both of them should be on the list.
Oh, I don't think you're trying to get rid
oh
of
no.
Chrono at
These
all.
are all very valid and good
I
things.
understood that.
These are all very valid and good points. It's just it's very difficult because both games are so good and fun, and it's hard to separate yourself as an experienced gamer talking about like what you would recommend to someone, right? Like I guess like it goes back again to like, okay, who are we recommending stuff to? Like if you are like, are we recommending it to our audience? Like, and I'm assuming our audience is like, okay, more experienced gamers and stuff, and they haven't experienced Earthbound, I would say go play Earthbound. But if our audience just say is just like our friends or someone who's just getting into like dabbling in the hobby and stuff, then I would say, okay, play something with a little bit more story focus, so you forget you're playing a game, and that's where I would say go for Chrono. So I guess like who is our audience? Like who are we recommending to is a really good choice, because then that'll also determine, okay, Mario versus Donkey Kong, just say, or something
Well,
else.
the thing is though, Gino, like I think of the 5 games that we have remaining, the ones that are the most like beginner friendly or the most like general audience appealing are Link to the Past and Super Mario World, I think. And that's something that like it's very, very, very important. And like also the trinity of like the holy trinity of Super Nintendo games are Super Metroid, Link to the Past, and Super Mario World. Like everyone played Super Mario World. Like that was the pack-in. That was the game that came. That was the bundled game with every system. That was the first game I probably have I have a memory of playing is probably Super Mario World. So like,
But isn't saying
I-
something like the holy trinity of Super Nintendo games like kind of forcing a like an opinion
no,
of
like
what should
no,
be
no,
on
but like
here?
those are like those are the ones that like for sure I would recommend. Like those are the 3 like without question, and like I think that like anything else there is extra. Like those are the 3 like those like you have
If
arguably
only
the
3
best Mario
were to be
game,
recommended, I
arguably the
would agree with
best Metroid game, and arguably the best 2D Mario game right there.
I can't believe we didn't recommend Mario Paint.
Just Mario twice.
Mario Paint. Oh,
In
sorry,
any case,
Zelda, Metroid, and Mario. So
I think we could debate this forever. But I think we need to make a decision on what best represents the Super Nintendo um as a system. So
I think it is
You
between
know what?
Chrono and
If
Earthbound.
that's the case, I'd say, as sad as it makes me, I'd say we could probably get rid of Mega Man.
and that's the thing to consider is we have a couple JRPGs here. We have a couple platformers. We also have Super Metroid, which is a Metroidvania, but shares a lot in quality to platformers. So if we're looking at that composition, like what are we looking at here? Like what are we comfortable dropping? Like I don't know. It's really up to you guys. At this point, I don't have any strong opinions anywhere other than the one.
yeah,
I just
I
thought
have
of something.
those 2 games for me. Like I think it would be criminal if Super Mario World, and Link to the Past aren't on there. But like anything else, like I like
Yeah.
of the other 3 games, I've never played those 3 other games: Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, and Mega Man X. So like
Well,
that's the only
perhaps
thing for me.
after this essentials list, you have some essentials you need to go back and play.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
have Earthbound. Like Earthbound's installed on my Wii U. I have the SNES Classic. Like I have ways to play that game. It like I, but like I can install Chrono Trigger on my phone. But
Hey, you also
Uh,
can play Mega Man X because that's also on your SNES Classic.
yes, it is. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's the thing. Like,
The more I think about it now, actually, Chrono is more niche to a certain extent. Like, yes, it's a more traditional game, but like you don't see Chrono in other media. You see NES floating around in
NES is
Smash
only
Bros.
in Smash Bros.
All right.
Gino.
Gino.
Gino, I'm not gonna. I kind of want to shut
I
this
mean-
argument down right now.
Yeah.
I think I might be a bad take.
But that's also because
Because of the
Nintendo as a
history.
franchise is much bigger, and they own something like
Yeah.
Super Smash Bros. But anyway,
That's no fault
let's
of
make
the
a
game.
decision, because or else we're gonna ramble on for 20 more minutes about which one deserves to be here.
Yeah, which
And
Let's
Craig is
just
gonna
make a
run
decision.
away again.
yeah. Jules, use your powers as the MC to decide. I think we're all okay with whatever gets picked, honestly. It's just we're splitting hairs.
Okay. Just
Make the
Riley,
executive
which one are you not putting on this essentials list?
I'm honestly okay in not putting Mega Man X on there.
Okay. Yako, which one are you not putting on?
I don't think Earthbound needs to be there. They've got a better RPG up there. And Chrono's
Okay,
better than
Matteo, which one are you not putting on there?
Either Earthbound or Mega Man X. Like I just
Okay.
don't see either of those.
Gino,
but-
which one are you dropping?
I say we need the diversity. Keep Mega Man. No
Okay, and
Earthbound.
Gino has played Earthbound and wants to drop it, which is interesting.
If you count 20 minutes, okay.
And here's the stalemate: is I was gonna say drop Mega Man. So again, we're at
Oh,
a
gosh.
stalemate. So I think Matteo, you gotta
I'll Mega Man's fine.
okay.
Drop it.
So our essentials list,
Mega
viewers
Man
of the
3 is better
world,
than Mega Man X, anyways.
our essential Super Nintendo list, people of the world, is the following, which you must drop everything you are playing right now to go play. Is we recommend to you Super Mario World, Super Metroid, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, and Earthbound. If you're going to play some games on Super Nintendo, try those out. Also, try out any of the other ones we mentioned today because they're all fantastic games. But those are our 5 essentials. With that, I think we can probably wrap up.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, thank you to Yako and Riley for joining us today as semi-regulars and hopefully more regular in the future as
Yep.
we enjoy
Yako, we
having
got to
the
talk about the
diversity of
Transformers
opinion.
series. You got to come back.
And just a reminder, if you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify or on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit like. Don't do it if you're a Gino fan. And
Yeah.
have a good one.
Mario RPG didn't even make this list, so why are you even here?
Wasn't even mentioned except by Gino in passing, which we will
Yep.
continue to not acknowledge. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.